Ever wondered why some men linger in a woman's mind, even after just one conversation? It's not about being the loudest guy in the room or the most charming. It's about saying the right thing at the right moment. Today we're unlocking a quiet secret, how a few simple, unexpected words can make her feel seen, understood, and unforgettable. Let's get into it. In this video, we're diving into a powerful yet rarely discussed topic: how to leave a lasting impression on a woman. Not by being flashy or overly assertive, but by speaking directly to her emotional core. You see, real connection doesn't come from compliments she hears every day. It comes from subtle language that stirs something deeper. We're going to explore 5 forbidden nicknames that, when delivered with the right tone and at the right moment, can trigger real emotional impact. And no, we're not talking about cringy pet names or generic sweet talk. These are psychological tools, clever, playful, and surprisingly intimate. Each one is designed to do something very specific: ignite her curiosity, create a private world between the two of you, and make her feel emotionally understood. These nicknames aren't random. They're crafted to create tension, meaning, and even emotional identity. Used well, they help you stand out, not just as someone who gets her, but as someone who feels her in ways others miss. We'll break down what each nickname actually implies, how it shapes the way she sees herself when you use it, and why it works on a subconscious level that most people overlook. And by the time we're done, you'll have a clear, respectful, and incredibly effective way to use language that resonates long after the conversation ends. So now that we've laid the foundation for how powerful the right words can be, let's break down the first forbidden nickname that leaves a lasting emotional imprint. Nickname number 1: trouble. In the dance of attraction, it's often the lightest, most playful phrases that strike the deepest chords. And few words do this better, more subtly, and more powerfully than the word trouble. At first glance, it seems harmless, even silly. But when it's spoken with the right timing, the right smirk, and the right tone, it carries a surprising emotional weight. It's more than teasing, it's a shift. A quiet, meaningful change in how two people experience each other in that moment. Imagine this: a man looks a woman straight in the eyes and says, "You're trouble," with a knowing smile. That simple phrase doesn't just make her laugh, it invites her into a shared moment, a private spark. It flips the script. Instead of being told she's beautiful, something she's probably heard 100 times before, she's being seen in a completely new way. She becomes a delightful disruption, a charming force that shakes up your emotional rhythm, someone who catches you off guard in the best way possible. And the beauty of it? It's wrapped in humor, not pressure. That's what makes trouble so effective. It doesn't feel like flattery. It feels like connection. It becomes an inside joke, a playful label that lives between you two, right in that moment. It subtly tells her, "You get under my skin, but I like it." This nickname shifts the energy from logical to emotional, from expected to unforgettable. A woman who feels mischievous, alive, and just a little rebellious in your presence, she's going to want to feel that again. But there's another layer, one that's even deeper. When a man calmly and confidently says, "You're trouble," he's actually revealing something vulnerable, without losing control. It's like a wink at how she affects him. He's admitting it, but in a way that keeps his center solid. That's incredibly attractive, because now she's not just flattered, she feels powerful. She sees that she can move you emotionally, and yet you're not unraveling. That balance between emotional spark and masculine steadiness, That's where lasting attraction takes root. But here's the key. This phrase only works when it's real. You can't fake it. It has to be sparked by something genuine, a bold comment she makes, a sly smile, a flash of unpredictability that catches you off guard. When you call her trouble in response to a real moment, it doesn't feel like a line, it feels like a mirror. One that reflects her boldness, her edge, her femininity. Use it too often, and it turns into a gimmick. But use it at the right moment, and it becomes your signature. A word she'll remember long after the conversation ends. A word that replays in her mind when she's alone, thinking about how she felt in that instant scene, stirred and alive. Because, at its core, calling her trouble isn't about manipulation. It's not a tactic, it's emotional truth, dressed up in charm. And in a world full of shallow compliments and tired lines, that kind of honesty is unforgettable. After exploring how a single word like trouble can create lasting emotional spark, let's now shift to another phrase that's just as playful, but with an entirely different energy. Nickname number 2, heartbreaker. Unlike empty flattery or intense praise that feels forced, heartbreaker hits differently. It's light but magnetic, simple but layered. Delivered with the right timing and tone, it becomes more than just a passing comment, it becomes a moment. That's what makes it unforgettable. It's not the word itself that lingers, it's the feeling it creates. When she hears it, used intentionally, she doesn't just feel attractive, she feels seen. Like someone worth stirring your world for, even if just a little. On the surface, calling a woman heartbreaker seems like a compliment. And it is. Acknowledges her beauty, her confidence, and the quiet power she carries when she walks into a room. But underneath that surface lies something more refined. It's not said with desperation or need, it's said with calm observation. When a man says, heartbreaker, with a relaxed tone and a knowing smile, he's not chasing her. He's not worshiping her. He's simply saying, I see you. I see how you move, and I'm not intimidated. That balance of appreciation without attachment is rare, because most men tend to swing to extremes. Either they overpraise, hoping to win her approval, or they close themselves off, pretending not to care. But calling her heartbreaker does neither. It honors her presence while keeping your emotional frame grounded. And that's why it works. You see, a lot of beautiful women are constantly surrounded by attention, but very few are truly seen. They're complimented, yes, but often in shallow or predictable ways. They're admired, but rarely understood. This phrase, heartbreaker, gently hints at both her charm and her impact. It recognizes a pattern she may not even realize she repeats, the quiet trail of admirers left in her wake. But here's the twist. It also implies you're not going to be one of them. That subtle paradox is what pulls her in. You're not trying to impress her. You're not trying to win her. You're simply stating the truth as you see it and standing your ground. That's the power of emotional contrast. Instead of saying, you're so beautiful, please like me, you're saying, a heartbreaker. I'll keep my distance. Not from fear, but from self-possession. Not sarcastic, not stiff, just calm, collected and real. And that emotional clarity is rare. It tells her you notice her, yes, but you're not wrapped up in her. You admire her, but you don't idolize her. You see her effect, and yet you remain unaffected. That subtle distance, that quiet independence, that's emotional intelligence in action. In that moment, heartbreaker becomes a mirror, not one that flatters her appearance, but one that reflects your awareness of her impact. She realizes you're not just another man trying to win her over. You're someone who can't be easily read, and that mystery, that curiosity, sticks with her. She'll wonder, why didn't he try to impress me? Why does he seem so aware yet so calm? So as we just explored, calling her heartbreaker only lands when it comes from grounded confidence, not a place of neediness. You're not giving away power. You're showing that you already have it. And that's exactly what draws her in. Now let's move to a nickname that's a bit more paradoxical, yet just as emotionally potent. Nickname number 3, my favorite headache. Some of the most powerful connections aren't built through perfection or ease. They're hidden inside contradiction. My favorite headache is one of those rare phrases that says two things at once. And that's precisely what makes it work. It doesn't just mean you drive me crazy. And it doesn't just mean you matter. It says both. And that contradiction is magnetic. When a man drops this phrase during a playful disagreement, a teasing moment, or even after she pushes his buttons on purpose, it tells her something deeper. He's not just tolerating her chaos, he's drawn to it. Drawn to her. The word headache on its own implies tension, maybe frustration, unpredictability, or challenge. But when you pair it with favorite, you instantly soften that tension. You transform what could be irritation into affection. Conflict becomes chemistry. And instead of reacting with annoyance, you create a shared moment. A private little spark between you two. Women respond to this emotional push-pull dynamic because it reflects how attraction actually feels. Real love isn't about smooth, drama-free interactions. It's about friction that's handled with emotional intelligence. It's about being challenged and still choosing each other. When you say something like, "You're my favorite headache," you're teasing her, yes, but you're also validating her. You're telling her she has enough presence, enough emotional weight to disrupt your peace. And you wouldn't have it any other way. That makes her feel important, significant, but not burdened with your emotional state. And there's something else happening, too, something psychological. This phrase taps into what's known as the intermittent reward loop. It's when positive and challenging emotions are mixed together in a way that keeps the experience emotionally textured, never flat, never predictable. That unpredictability? It's addictive. If you only ever praise her, it gets boring. If you only ever critique her, it turns toxic. But when you blend admiration with playful challenge, when you say, asterisk, "You drive me nuts, but I love it," asterisk, that's when you hit emotional gold. Of course, timing is everything. This isn't a line you use in serious fights or when emotions are running high. It shines in moments of light tension, like when she's teasing you, playfully testing your patience, or throwing out a sarcastic remark to see how you'll respond. That's when you lean in, smirk, and say it. "You really are my favorite headache," and then say nothing else. Let the contradiction hang in the air. Let her feel it, not just as a compliment, but as an emotional experience. Because in that moment, she's not just being liked, she's being felt. She's emotionally alive in your presence. And that changes how she sees you. No longer the guy who gets flustered when challenged, or the guy who hides behind politeness. You become the man who can hold both tension and tenderness without crumbling. The one who can be annoyed and adoring at the same time. That's emotional maturity. And that's what builds both attraction and trust. So when you call her my favorite headache, you're not just playing with words, you're shaping how she feels around you, challenged, cherished, and emotionally alive. That blend of tension and warmth is unforgettable. Now let's take that emotional energy in a different direction, into something more free-spirited, untamed, and impossible to pin down. Nickname number 4, wild card. When you look at a woman and say with a playful smirk, "You're such a wild card," you're not just teasing her. You're doing something far more powerful. You're capturing a moment. You're naming an energy that's unpredictable, thrilling, and full of life. You're not complimenting her looks. You're not repeating the same old lines she's probably heard before. What you're doing is recognizing something emotional, something rare. You're naming the spark of surprise she brings into your world, and more importantly, letting her know you like it. That's why this nickname lands with impact. It reaches beneath the surface. It tells her she stands out, not for how she looks, but for how she disrupts the ordinary. It's your way of saying, "There's something about you that caught me off guard, and I didn't expect to enjoy it, but I do." For many women, that kind of recognition, one that goes beyond beauty and taps into who they are, is incredibly rare. When she hears that, something shifts. She starts to see herself through that lens, dynamic, unpredictable, exciting, and that's where the psychology kicks in. There's a concept called identity reinforcement, the idea that when you give someone a name or role they like, they often rise to meet it. When you call her a wild card, you plant a subtle idea in her mind. She starts to wonder, what is it about me that makes me unpredictable? And before she even realizes it, she begins leaning into it more. That's the beauty of this phrase. It doesn't just compliment her, it reshapes her emotional identity in a playful, empowering way. She becomes clever, bold, uncontainable, not because you told her to be, but because you noticed it, honored it, and made it feel exciting instead of intimidating. And that recognition, it becomes part of your shared language, a private code between the two of you that no one else really gets. While other men might play it safe or stick to formulas, you become the man who welcomes mystery, the one who doesn't need to control her or figure her out. You're secure enough to just enjoy the ride, and that kind of presence, it's magnetic. Because you're not trying to box her in, you're creating space for her to expand. But of course, as with everything we've covered, delivery is everything. Use this phrase in the right moments when she does or says something unexpected. Maybe it's a witty one-liner that catches you off guard, a bold opinion she throws out, or even the way she looks at you without saying a word, challenging you to keep up. That's when you pause, lean in just slightly, offer a half smile and say, "You're such a wild card. I never know what I'm going to get with you." And then, let it hang there. Because what you're really doing is rewarding something. Women are often afraid to express their emotional spontaneity. You're telling her it's not just okay to be unpredictable. It's irresistible. And once she feels that, she starts bringing more of that boldness into the space between you. Not because she's trying to impress you, but because you've made it safe and thrilling for her to show up fully. That's the quiet brilliance of one simple phrase. It reshapes how she sees herself. It pulls her into deeper curiosity, and it builds a feeling she wants to revisit again and again. So when you call her a wild card, you're not just observing her unpredictability, you're celebrating it. You're telling her that her mystery is magnetic and that you're grounded enough to enjoy it without needing to solve it. Now, we move into something even more intimate, something that shifts the entire emotional tone of your connection. A nickname that doesn't just flatter. It resonates. Nickname number 5, Muse. There are compliments. And then there are emotional imprints. Most men stick to the former comments on her beauty, her outfit, her smile. Nice? Sure. Memorable? Not always. Why? Because they're common, expected, often tossed around without weight or intention. And sometimes, they feel transactional, like you're offering praise just to get attention back. But when you call a woman your muse, everything changes. You flip the dynamic entirely. You stop admiring from a distance and start letting her in. A muse isn't just someone you're drawn to. She's someone who moves you, who awakens something in you that feels deeper than attraction. She inspires thought, clarity, creativity. She doesn't just catch your eye, she changes your inner world. So when you say, "You're kind of my muse," she doesn't just hear a compliment, she hears, "You reach places in me that no one else has. You influence the way I think, the way I see, the way I create." That hits differently, because this isn't about obsession or dependence, it's about recognition. She's not being reduced to beauty. She's being acknowledged as meaningful, impactful, emotionally significant, and that's rare. That one phrase places her in a role few women are ever offered. You're not objectifying her. You're not performing. You're saying, "You matter in a way that shapes me." Whether that means she brings you peace you didn't know you were missing, challenges your thinking in a way that unlocks new clarity, or simply makes everyday moments feel more alive, she becomes part of your transformation. And women feel that because for many of them, emotional purpose is more powerful than physical desire. She wants to feel that her presence changes you, not because she tried, but simply because she is. When you say something like, "I think clearer when I'm around you," you're not being poetic. You're being vulnerable, real. And when that vulnerability comes from a man who's grounded and self-assured, it draws her in. There's also a deeper psychology behind this. When someone feels they play a meaningful role in your evolution, it activates what's called ego investment. She begins to see herself as part of your story, as someone who matters not just to your heart, but to your growth. And when that happens, something shifts. She feels bonded, loyal, not because you asked, but because you offered something most men don't. Emotional relevance. But of course it has to be real. Forced sincerity backfires. You don't say this to flatter. You say it when something genuinely shifts in you. Maybe it's a comment she makes that unlocks a new insight. Maybe it's her presence that brings unexpected calm. Maybe it's a quiet moment that somehow feels more meaningful than hours spent alone. That's when it lands. And when it does, say it simply, no performance, no build-up. As if the words surprised even you. Honestly, you're kind of my muse. Just that. Because in that moment, you stop being another man chasing her. You become the man transformed by her. And you're not asking for anything. You're not hoping for validation. You're offering something few women ever receive, the gift of emotional impact. And that's what she remember. The man who didn't just admire her, but who felt something shift when she stepped into his life. The man who connected her presence to his purpose, who made her feel not just noticed but relevant. And that kind of relevance, that creates a connection far deeper than charm. Because while most men want to be desired, there's something rare about the man who, so when you call her your muse, you're not flattering her, you're honoring her. You're letting her know that her presence doesn't just draw your eyes, it moves something within you. And that kind of emotional impact, It stays with her. At its core, attraction isn't about chasing someone or memorizing lines. It's about creating a space where emotions flow freely, naturally, and deeply. It's about speaking in a way that doesn't just reach her ears, but touches something far more personal. These 5 nicknames, Trouble, Heartbreaker, My Favorite, Headache, Wild Card, and Muse, aren't pickup lines. They're not tricks. And they're definitely not about control. They're invitations. Each one is a carefully chosen doorway into emotion, into playfulness, mystery, identity, and meaning. When spoken from a place of calm confidence and real emotional presence, these words do something most men never even think to do. They make her feel something about herself. Something that's not obvious, not superficial, but unique. Something that says, I see who you are beneath the surface, and I like what I see. In a world overflowing with generic compliments and shallow charm, that kind of emotional recognition is rare. And when a woman senses that you're not just looking at her, but actually into her, she starts to feel a connection that lives deeper than physical attraction. Because here's the truth. Whether it's the teasing playfulness of Trouble, the edge of mystery in Heartbreaker, or the raw emotional significance of Muse, each of these nicknames becomes more than just a phrase. It becomes an emotional anchor, something that lingers long after the conversation ends. That's how lasting attraction is built. Not by chasing, not by performing, but by learning to speak the emotional language that reaches the part of her that craves more than attention. She wants to feel seen. She wants to feel chosen. She wants to feel alive in your presence. And if you can do that, you don't just leave an impression, you leave a memory. If this video gave you something new to think about, or helped you reflect on your past relationships or current connection, I genuinely love to hear from you. Which of these nicknames do you feel fits your personality best? Have you ever used one of them without even realizing it? Or maybe someone once called you something that stuck with you for years. Whatever your story, drop it in the comments. You never know, your insight might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if you want to dive deeper into the psychology of connection, emotional influence, and how to build truly meaningful relationships, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. We're just getting started. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.